Hey guys, what's going on, dudes? And welcome, guys. Is the PassThru podcast, episode 1. Now, if you guys don't really know what the PassThru podcast is, this is a podcast where we talk about all things NASCAR. And this is a NASCAR podcast only, so there's gonna be no NFL talk, no other soccer talk or football talk or basketball talk. This is strictly down to NASCAR. And we're gonna be talking about 3 things today. So let's start off by talking about the 2 most dominant drivers in NASCAR currently. That is Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. These 2 drivers have been so dominant when it comes to NASCAR season. I think Kevin Harvick has 5 wins, Denny Hamlin has 5 wins. Or example, I think Kevin Harvick has 6 wins and Denny Hamlin has 5. But anyway, I haven't seen one driver, even if it's 2 drivers, I haven't seen one driver dominate the season like this since Matt Kenseth did it back in 2013. Matt Kenseth, if I remember right, he won 7 races during that 2013 season. Did not end up winning the championship, unfortunately, for him. If I remember right, 2013, that was Jimmy Johnson's year, where Jimmy Johnson won the championship in 2013, because Brad Keselowski won, Tony Stewart won in 2011, Brad Keselowski won in 2012, and Jimmy Johnson won 2013, and then Kevin Harvick won 2014, Kyle Busch won 2015, and then Jimmy Johnson won 2016. So yeah, that's really how it goes. But yeah, I haven't seen a guy dominate the season. It's been, I mean, when it comes to one driver dominate season, it's been done twice in the past. I think probably in the past, I'd say probably past 12 years, and that is with Matt Kenseth and Kyle Busch. Funny enough, two Joe Gibbs drivers. One's currently driving for Joe Gibbs, and the other's driving for Chip Ganassi Racing. But you got to look at both of their seasons, how their season ended up. Matt Kenseth, he won 7 races. He looked to be a dominating factor, but did not win the championship. And probably the biggest shocker to everyone was probably that 2008 season. Because the way Kyle Busch was driving and the way Kyle Busch was winning races, you would say, oh, Kyle Busch is going to win the championship. And I think what was his first season for Joe Gibbs racing that number 18 Toyota, he won all these races during the regular season. And when it came down to the playoffs, at the end of the season, he finished last in standings. That if people were betting on Kyle Busch to win the championship, they lost all their money that year. But enough about Kyle Busch, enough about Matt Kenseth. We're going to get right back into Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. These 2 drivers just seem to be on their game when you have other drivers like Kyle Busch not on their game, Chase Elliott not on their game. Well, Chase Elliott's on his game. Joey Logano really hasn't been on his game in the past couple of races, and that's really been sad to see, because Joey Logano's a very good racer and he deserves to be right up there. But his team has just not been performing as well as, let's say, his teammate like Brad Keselowski. Because the other day, Brad Keselowski won at New Hampshire. But when it comes to like who I think is the most dominant driver between not Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, I gotta give the factor to Kevin Harvick, just due down to him and his team, how they work together, how look at this past weekend when they were in Michigan. Kevin Harvick swept both Michigan races, and he was the most dominant car in both races. It was really, really tough to get past Kevin Harvick once he got into that lead. That's how good that team is. Joe Gibbs Racing, they're on the same level, but I mean, Denny Hamlin probably right now is the best driver in Joe Gibbs Racing. Martin Truex Jr. hasn't been on this game. Kyle Busch has had some very, very bad luck and hasn't been on this game. Kyle Busch hasn't even won a race when it comes to NASCAR season. So, yeah, and then you have Stewart-Haas, who have Kevin Harvick, their most dominant driver. So, technically, if you really look at it, Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin are the most dominant drivers for their team. Because Kevin Harvick's team, you get Aric Almirola, who's been very consistent with top 10s, Clint Bowyer, who's been kind of struggling, and then you got a rookie in Cole Custer that has won a race and is in the playoffs. So, right now, if I remember right, Stewart-Haas Racing has 3 cars in the playoffs. Same goes for Joe Gibbs Racing. The only one driver from both teams that are not in the playoffs right now is Clint Bowyer for Stewart. Actually, no, Clint Bowyer's in the playoffs. What am I on about? Yeah, Clint Bowyer's in the playoffs right now. So Stewart-Haas have all 4 cars in there. It's just that Clint Bowyer hasn't been as strong as I thought he would be. I think he's right ahead of William Byron in terms of the standings. And for Joe Gibbs to get Erik Jones, and we'll get on into Erik Jones later on in the video. But these two drivers have just been so dominant, and it's just really shocking to see, because when the start of the season, you would have never thought that Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin would have won these races. They would have won races, trust me, they would have won a lot of races, but you would not have thought that Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick would have at least won 11 races so far, and we haven't even gotten to the playoffs. Now, this weekend, when it comes to NASCAR, they're going to be at the Daytona Road Course. Now, I don't really think Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin are going to win that race, because I don't really see those two as like great road course races, but anything is possible, and they could surprisingly pull off a win at a road course. And then you got the Daytona, then you got Dover back to back. Love for Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin to be strong there. I swear, if Kevin Harvick wins both of those races, Kevin Harvick, give Kevin Harvick the championship. Just give him the championship, because he's already done. If he sweeps both the Dover races, and Kevin Harvick is not even that good at Dover, I'd probably say Denny Hamlin's better than Kevin Harvick at Dover. Give Kevin Harvick the championship, because this man's on a championship run, and the way him and this team are just they work well together. Him and Rodney Childress, who has been his crew chief since I think he's been at Stewart-Haas Racing, so that is what, a 6-year relationship. Denny Hamlin's had his crew. I forgot the crew chief's name for Denny Hamlin, but I know they've been together for a while. But I feel like in terms of like the best like crew chief and driver relationship, I gotta give it to Rodney Childress and Kevin Harvick, because they've been just so strong together, and that's the reason why Stewart-Haas have not even replaced Rodney Childress on, like from the box of Kevin Harvick, because they've been so strong in terms of like winning races, being competitive for championships. Because if you look at the past few years, since Kevin Harvick won the championship in 2014, Kevin Harvick has been either in the top 4 coming to final race of the season, final round of the playoffs, or he's been eliminated in the round of 8. There hasn't been a season where Kevin Harvick has not made at least the round of 8, more specifically the round of 4. So the championship round, basically. So Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childress have been a very good, like coupled together when it comes to like crew chief and driver. And then we take a look at Denny Hamlin and his crew chief. I mean, Denny Hamlin was probably a good favorite to win the championship last season, and it just did not end up happening. And his teammate Kyle Busch ended up winning. And we see how Kyle Busch is going on right now. His teammate Kyle Busch hasn't even won a race. He's a 2019 Sprint NASCAR Cup Series champion and hasn't won a race. Can you? If like most people can't even believe that Cole Custer has won a race before Kyle Busch. Cole Custer's like 21, 22-year-old has won a race before the defending Sprint NASCAR Cup Series champion. If you were to go into the season and say, like Kyle Busch was not win a race, and before Kyle Busch would win a race, a rookie would win a race, most people would have probably thought you were being stupid. And I would have probably been, I was like, that would have never happened, because Kyle Busch, by now, I thought he would have had at least 2 to 3 wins. But he doesn't. He doesn't. And Kyle Busch will definitely still be in the playoffs. And I feel like this is kind of going in a way where, like he's leading up to Kyle Busch not having a very good, like, it's having Kyle Busch not having a very good regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, they're going to be on their game, and you're going to see the best of Kyle Busch in that playoffs, and you're probably going to see Kyle Busch make it to the Final Four again, and have a very good shot at winning that championship round. Now, when it comes to the Final Four, we don't really know, because we can't predict. I can't predict that far. Like, the Final Four is going to be in Phoenix. I have no idea why they took it away from Homestead, because Homestead was such a perfect round. IMS invested so much into Phoenix, and then after they got the final race at Phoenix, they just left. And if the final round is at IMS Racing, IMS Speedway, now it's Phoenix Raceway, the favorite for that race is going to be Kevin Harvick. But if Kevin Harvick doesn't make it for that round, Denny Hamlin ends up making it. I gotta give it to Denny Hamlin, because both those drivers are really strong when it comes to the Phoenix Raceway. So yeah, if I probably have to say who's the best driver of the season, I probably have to give it a slight edge to Kevin Harvick over Denny Hamlin. Even though the last few races they've been really battling each other, and of course some of these races they finish 1-2, and sometimes it's Denny Hamlin getting the better of him, but sometimes it's Kevin Harvick getting the better of him. But in terms of like the best driver of this NASCAR current season, I have to give it to Mr. Kevin Harvick. So now, alright, now it's time to discuss the next topic of this podcast, Christopher Bell and Erik Jones. Now, it has been fully announced now that Christopher Bell will be driving the number 20 for Joe Gibbs Racing next season, replacing Erik Jones for the 2021 season. Now, I've already done a video talking about this. I think it was yesterday I did this video, but I'm gonna basically go into my opinion on how I feel about this, like a full opinion about this. And I think this is actually a very good move for Joe Gibbs Racing, because I feel like Christopher Bell has a lot more potential than Erik Jones has, even though Erik Jones was really good for Joe Gibbs Racing, especially in the lower series when he was racing for KBM, and he drove for Joe Gibbs in that 20 car. He was a very good driver. Of course, he won the championship in the truck series. But if you want to compare it to like the dominant stats, and even if you're looking at Kyle Busch and all these other drivers competing against them in the truck series and nationwide series, or Xfinity series, how they call it now, I gotta say the most dominant driver in terms of both of those has got to be Christopher Bell. Bell came into the truck series. I think he stayed at least in the truck series for, I think it was 2 seasons, was it? And this man was just dominant through the truck series. Of course, he won the truck series championship. He did not win the Xfinity series championship. Shockingly, that was due down to Tyler Reddick, and Tyler Reddick just being very good in terms of that Final Four and winning that final race. So, yeah. But now that Christopher Bell is going to be replacing Erik Jones, and we don't even know where Erik Jones is going to be for the next season, it's really interesting to see, because you got Joe Gibbs taking a chance, and apparently Erik Jones has actually not even seen this move coming. He was blindsided by this. But I mean, that happens in NASCAR. Sometimes you're blindsided by this. When it comes to like the big factor of this, obviously the biggest factor in terms of this move is Levine Family Racing shutting down. Levine Family Racing is the current team that Christopher Bell is driving for. Now that they won't be there for the 2021 season, Joe decided to make a decision. It was probably a very tough decision, considering him and Erik Jones have a very good relationship with each other. But they ended up going with Christopher Bell, and who's to say, maybe Toyota and Erik Jones they still have a good relationship after this, and let's say Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin retire in a couple of years, who knows? Maybe Erik Jones could come back down in the line and join Joe Gibbs Racing again, but I don't really think that's going to happen. And I just feel like this is Erik Jones' moment to prove Joe Gibbs wrong on how wrong they were to let him go and replace him with Christopher Bell, because if Erik Jones goes to a team like Hendrick Motorsports or Chip Ganassi Racing, then he has the opportunity to improve himself, and he has the opportunity to show Joe Gibbs how Joey Logano showed Joe Gibbs what they did by losing him, because Joey Logano, when he joined Joe Gibbs Racing, he was a not very good driver. He didn't have some good finishes, and then when he made the move to Penske Racing to drive the number 22, it all took off for him. He ended up winning the 2018 championship, even though the way he did it was kind of disrespectful for me, because I mean, he probably wouldn't. I don't even know if he would have made it if he didn't bump Martin Truex Jr. out of the way at that Martinsville race, but he ended up making it to himself, winning that championship, and I gotta give it to him there. But yeah, Erik Jones has basically the next chance to become the next Joey Logano. If he does go to Chip Ganassi Racing or Hendrick Motorsports, I'd put it likely on Hendrick Motorsports. But if he does actually, imagine this. Imagine Erik Jones joins Hendrick Motorsports or Chip Ganassi Racing, and they absolutely take off. And he wins a lot of races for them, basically becomes the next Joey Logano, he wins the championship. Meanwhile, Christopher Bell, even though I highly doubt it, Christopher Bell is going to be a very good driver for Joe Gibbs Racing in terms of the coming seasons. But it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens between this. But in terms of my whole opinion on who I think got the better out of this move between Erik Jones and Christopher Bell for Joe Gibbs, I probably gotta give it to Christopher Bell. Speaking about Erik Jones now, my final topic for this podcast is going to be Erik Jones to Hendrick Motorsports. Erik Jones, like I spoke about in the previous topic, he's going to be without a ride for a 2021 season currently, but he's probably in negotiations right now with a whole bunch of different teams. Now, when it comes to the teams I think he's most likely to go to, there could be with brothers. Obviously, you have Stewart-Haas possibly with Bowyer. Imagine Erik Jones goes to the Ford and does what Joey Logano did. Like I talked about in the previous topic, he actually joins the Ford and does what Joey Logano did. Basically go from Toyota to Ford and then just go on to win a lot of races. But I feel like that 14's being saved right now for Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson will end up being back in the NASCAR season next year. So what does that leave? That leaves Wood Brothers Racing, Matt DiBenedetto, but considering Paul Menard really wanted Matt DiBenedetto in that seat for the Wood Brothers Racing, I highly doubt like Penske and Wood Brothers would even get rid of Matt DiBenedetto, and if they ever did, they would probably get rid of him for Austin Cindric, who's in the Xfinity Series right now winning a lot of races. So that leaves two teams in my specific honest opinion. Chip Ganassi Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. Which of those teams should sign Erik Jones? I gotta give it to Hendrick Motorsports, because if you really look at it between the two teams right now, who is probably the better team out of all of them? I would probably give that to Hendrick Motorsports. Kurt Busch has been good. Matt Kenseth's been okay, but they haven't been like consistently battling in the top 10 or top 5s like Hendrick Motorsports is. Of course, you have Alex Bowman, who's already in the playoffs. Chase Elliott's already in the playoffs. William Byron right now is above the cut line. Jimmy Johnson's below the cut line. I mean, Kurt Busch is in the playoffs right now, and then Matt Kenseth probably doesn't even have a shot at making the playoffs unless he goes out and wins the race, which would throw everything out there, because that would eliminate William Byron. And yeah, but the way I see things are going right now, Erik Jones does have a lot of experience. I mean, he doesn't have, I think he has the same amount of experience that Chase Elliott has, because Chase Elliott joined in 2015, so Chase Elliott has 2 more years of experience on Erik Jones. And when it comes to like Rick Hendrick, geez, I can't pronounce his name, Rick Hendrick, and him wanting that 48 seat, he wants somebody with experience there. Now with Brad Keselowski signing a 1-year deal, that gets that off the table. Of course, you have Bubba Wallace as a possibility. That would be a big shocker for me, because I feel like Bubba's gonna stay at Richard Petty Motorsports. And then of course you have guys like maybe Kyle Larson. Maybe Kyle Larson comes back to Chevy, and like he signs for Hendrick Motorsports. But I feel like right now he's going to go to Stewart-Haas Racing, because him and Tony Stewart have a very good relationship, and that 14 Ford would be very, very competitive. And Tony Stewart loves him some Kyle Larson, so I feel like that's going to be a very good option. Who else is out there? Not really that much people after that when you consider that. I mean, they could bring up Ross Chastain. They're definitely not bringing Noah Gragson in, because Noah Gragson's nowhere near ready for the Cup Series. He has too many attitude problems in the Xfinity Series, and I don't see him getting called up at least for another year. I'd probably see him getting called up in probably 2022 for the NASCAR Cup Series season. So that really leaves Erik Jones. And the reason why I feel like this is a perfect fit, because this is giving Erik Jones a fresh opportunity. And let's say somebody like Stanley or Craftsman, like that sponsor Erik Jones, wants to stay with them, and he brings that over to Hendrick Motorsports, who is contemplating maybe downsizing a team, which I don't really think is going to be happening. But imagine say that Stanley and Craftsman stay on with Erik Jones because they believe in him. He brings that over to the 48 car, which already has Ally sponsorship there, so Erik Jones would be good there. But imagine if Erik Jones brings 2 more sponsors to that 48 car. Hendrick would definitely sign Erik Jones. Now, that'd be a very, very young team, but that young team would have a lot of potential. And Rick Hendrick would not have to worry about replacing any of those drivers. I feel like the one driver you probably have to worry about replacing in that old team is probably going to be Alex Bowman, because Alex Bowman's the oldest out of all of them. Chase Elliott's technically young, William Byron's young, and Erik Jones is around the same age as Chase Elliott, so technically you have a very young team. And I think Alex Bowman's at a pretty young age, I'd probably say not a young age, but I'd probably say average age. But still, that team would just have so much potential in it, and you wouldn't have to worry about replacing another driver or signing a replacement driver for probably at least 9 to 10 more seasons, or probably all right, let me go a little less, probably 5 to 6 seasons, because of that Alex Bowman situation. But let's say you get rid of Alex Bowman coming into the 2022 season, and you bring up like Noah Gragson or someone else that that's possibly like that, like Zane Smith. like who can go to Junior Motorsports next year, or probably even Daniel Hemrick back. If Daniel Hemrick does good in the Xfinity Series, or probably Jeb Burton, then you're looking at a very, very young team and a team with a lot of potential. So it's really going to be really interesting to see when it comes to the Erik Jones and Hendrick situation. But right now I feel like out of all the teams that Erik Jones is, like rumored to be with and rumored to be linked with, I feel like out of all those teams, the one team that's probably going to be able to sign him is going to be Hendrick Motorsports. And that is just due down to, this is the perfect situation for both of them. If Erik Jones does bring sponsorship with him, this is a perfect moment for Rick Hendrick to get a driver like Erik Jones in. Because Erik Jones has won races. He's won, I'd probably say he's won 3 or 4 races in his Cup Series career. Of course, he won the Darlington race last season. But you're still bringing in a race winner, because you're still bringing a guy that can win races, that can be competitive on his good day. And then you have guys like Chase Elliott, who's very competitive on his day, Alex Boone, who's very competitive on his day, and William Byron, who has the potential to be very competitive on a perfect day. So you would have 4 drivers with the capability of winning. You probably have one of the best lineups when it comes to the Cup Series. So that's really why I think Hendrick Motorsports is probably the perfect fit for Erik Jones. But hey, who's to say, like I said, Wood Brothers could be out there, like who's to say like Chip Ganassi Racing doesn't throw their hands out there, or throw a fishing line out there and try and reel in Jones for that 42 team. But yeah, in terms of this whole podcast, that's what I feel like is going to happen. That's all my opinions about this. But make sure you guys tune in for the next episode of the PassThru podcast, which will be coming out next Wednesday. And this will also be on audio. If you guys want to know on audio, then make sure to check the link down in the description down below. And that's how you know where we'll be on audio. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys all later. Peace.